Governor DeSantis, it's all yours. Thank you for hosting us.
Well, thanks, Roy, and thanks to the Texas Stock Exchange for coming here. I think it's exciting what they're doing. I think they offer something really unique, and as you see the movement of businesses and people to this boom belt, I think the importance of the Texas Stock Exchange is only going to continue to grow. I often tell people, as governor of Florida, my job is to closely follow California, Illinois, New York, so I can do precisely the opposite of what they do. And I think, and unfortunately, that's been a pretty good way to go. A lot of these states, including other smaller states that don't get a lot talked about, like Delaware, have made it more difficult to do business. And there's been a variety of factors that have led really an unprecedented movement of people and capital into states like Texas and Florida. Florida has had more adjusted gross income move into our state since I've been governor than has ever moved into any state in the history of the United States, even adjusted for inflation. And part of that is the good policies, but part of it is some of what's going on in these other states. I'll just say the thing we're seeing in Florida right now in a really significant way is the reaction to the proposed wealth tax in California. When Mandami got elected in New York City, people were saying, oh, there may be a flood. I didn't really think that, and I said that publicly just because there's a lot of meat that's come off that bone. A lot of people have moved from New York over the years. People have moved businesses. But what we've seen is the prospect of this tax, a 5% tax on wealth, which first of all is a bad way to tax. It's unrealized gains. There's a lot of problems with it. But then it applies to your voting rights, not just what shares that you actually own in equity. So you can imagine the founders of some of these companies who own a lot of stock and are very valuable, but then to impute to them massive more that they have to pay tax on, a lot of them don't want to mess with that. And so we've seen the flight of really, really significant folks into Florida, many of them here in the Miami area. And I think it is, yes, that particular tax was bad, but I think it's like, okay, if it doesn't pass, they'll come up with something else. And then it's just 50% plus one of the vote, and you can do all this. We're in the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States. The founding fathers, they wanted a system based on the consent of the government, but they did not want to have 50% plus one I get, then I get to take from you, or 50% plus one you get to take from me. They wanted to have a rule of law, and they wanted some of this stuff, particularly private property, to not just be subjected to those types of whims. So we've seen that in really significant measures. We've also been able to do a lot of reforms that I think have been very beneficial for us. Tort reform has been big. We've restructured the courts with more, I think, conservative-leaning justices on our Supreme Court, and on it goes. And so we're just proud to be here. We're proud of what's going on throughout our entire region of the country. And I know that there's been a lot of very healthy competition between states like Florida, Tennessee, Texas, Georgia, some of these, and I think that's really, really good. And when I'm pushing hard on stuff, I know people tell Greg, hey, you got to be doing. When Greg's doing stuff, people say, hey, look what Texas just did. And I think that that's been really, really good, not just for the people of our individual states, but for the region as a whole. And I think we've shown a great framework for how you can succeed and really grow your economies and give people more opportunities. So thanks, everyone, for being here.
Governor DeSantis, thank you for your leadership for making Florida a magnet for talent and capital. Let me just use this. Governor Abbott, thank you for your support in helping establish the Texas Stock Exchange, where Citadel Securities was an early investor. Across Florida, Texas, and other high-growth states, government officials have created environments where businesses can operate, invest, and importantly, grow with confidence. This type of public and private partnership should be the model for the rest of our country. Citadel Securities has experienced the benefits of this approach firsthand. At the beginning of the COVID pandemic, we came to Florida to stand up a secure bubble for our market-making operations. As a firm that accounts for close to 25% of daily U.S. equity trading volumes, it was critical for us to have our key people in a single and safe physical location. In just 1 week, our team, working alongside local officials here in Florida, built a fully functioning trading floor inside of a Palm Beach hotel. We built a system capable of supporting the entire trading volume of the U.S. equity market in case other firms weren't nearly as prepared as we planned to be. In many, if not most other jurisdictions, we would have waited for months, if not years, for legal permits. After returning to Chicago, our people quickly realized how much they missed what the state of Florida had offered us. They'd experienced a quality of life here and a public-private partnership that Chicago simply couldn't match. Even before we decided to relocate, Mayor Suarez had made a very compelling case for us to relocate to Miami. By the end of that first meeting with Mayor Suarez, he was already searching on his mobile phone for potential new sites for a Citadel headquarter building here in Miami. Based on our own experience, it's no surprise Florida continues to lead the nation in net business relocations. It's also why trillions in capital have flowed to the Boom Belt from states like New York and California. Florida offers exceptional talent, regulatory clarity, and a wonderful quality of life. These clear advantages tend to compound over time. Before I conclude, I'd also like to thank Chairman Atkins and the administration for fostering continued growth and innovation in U.S. financial markets. We are fortunate to have a U.S. capital market system that is literally the envy of the rest of the world. Efforts to return our markets to first principles, funding growth, generating returns for investors, and reinforcing U.S. leadership and entrepreneurship is critically important. Jim, thank you for your convening power and getting us together today, and for your leadership building the Texas Stock Exchange, which will soon become an important part of the overall global market structure. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim, and thank Citadel for the partnership. And Governor DeSantis, it's wonderful to be here in the free state of Florida. I know you have a lot going on in Tallahassee with one, maybe two, maybe three special sessions looming. So we appreciate you being here to host us. It's also a privilege to address the many CEOs that are gathered here today. The Boom Belt is not a talking point, it is a verdict. 11 states across the southeast quadrant of the United States now generate $9 trillion in annual GDP, an economic output that trails only the United States as a whole and China. In the past 5 years, the Boom Belt has absorbed 7 million new residents, which is 70% of all U.S. population growth, while creating roughly 60% of every net American job created. An average of 700 households move to the Boom Belt every single day, while households are exiting the other three quadrants. The Boom Belt isn't outperforming the rest of the country by accident. It is outperforming because it is out-governing with competitive taxes, predictable, statute-based legal frameworks, and a governing philosophy that places capital formation at the center of economic policy. The results are visible everywhere. The relocation of corporate headquarters to the Boom Belt has accelerated dramatically and shows no signs of slowing. As Jim highlighted, Citadel's move in 2022 here to Florida was a seminal moment. Schwab, Chevron, Caterpillar, Tesla now call Texas home. Palantir chose Florida. AllianceBernstein went to Tennessee, Norfolk Southern, Georgia, and the list continues to grow every quarter. Where companies legally domicile is also shifting. Governor Abbott has placed Texas in direct competition with Delaware for corporate registrations, and the Boom Belt is winning. Today, roughly 2,500 of the 3,900 domestic public companies are domiciled in Delaware, compared to a little more than 100 in Texas. That balance is beginning to flip. Tesla redomiciled to Texas. Dillard's and Coinbase followed. And last month, in a watershed moment, ExxonMobil announced that it was moving its legal home to Texas after 140 years in New Jersey. Hundreds of companies representing trillions of dollars in market capitalization are realigning behind Exxon. And believe me, we haven't seen anything yet. These decisions, where you headquarter, where you legally domicile, and where you list your company, are distinct but reinforcing. The Boom Belt has built competitive advantages across each, reflecting the broader realignment already underway in the U.S. economy. For a Fortune 100 company, the combined savings from simply realigning your legal home and your primary listing can reach tens of millions of dollars annually. Texas understands this. Last year, the state ratified a constitutional amendment prohibiting transaction taxes on national exchanges headquartered in that state. The very same week, bills advanced in Albany to reinstate New York's stock transfer tax on exchanges, a $75 billion annual grab from retirees and investors. Now the New York Lieutenant Governor endorses the tax. They may actually do it. Texas has also overhauled its corporate and business codes, making it cheaper, simpler, and more predictable for companies to incorporate, operate, and to scale. And it passed landmark legislation increasing accountability for the foreign-owned proxy advisors. Here in Florida, Governor DeSantis has taken decisive action as well, highlighted by landmark tort reform to curb lawsuit abuse and to drive down litigation cost. The contrast between jurisdictions that embrace capital formation and those that punish it could not be clearer. Why does it matter? 30 years ago, the United States had 8,100 public companies. Today, as Chairman Atkins knows, there are only 3,900. While America lost half of its public companies, the number grew by 50% globally. And sadly, the United States has not yet found the bottom in our public markets. Our current IPO replacement rate is insufficient to offset the companies that are exiting or those that should be exited. Meanwhile, private capital has filled the financing gap as the number of sponsor-backed private companies has grown tenfold over the same period. As Chairman Atkins has remarked repeatedly, it used to be cool to be public, so what happened? The answer is we made it complicated, expensive, and legally treacherous to be a public company. Remaining private became the only rational choice. This is not a coincidence, it is a consequence. Consider SpaceX, arguably the most exciting and consequential company of our generation. 24 years after its founding, it will go public this summer, raising as much as $80 billion, nearly 3 times the largest IPO ever, at a valuation perhaps exceeding $1.7 trillion or even more. In those 24 years, SpaceX completed 31 financing rounds, raising more than $12 billion from just a handful of well-positioned institutions. Compare that to Apple, which went public in 1980, just 4 years after it was founded, with a 40-page offering document, or Amazon, which went public in 97, 3 years after it was formed. The single greatest wealth-creating opportunity in modern history, SpaceX, occurred almost entirely out of view and entirely out of reach of everyday Americans. A day late and $1 trillion short. That is the real cost of a broken public market system. The leaders on this stage understand this is a pivotal moment for American capitalism, not a time for incremental change, but a moment for bold realignment to the first principles that made America's capital markets the envy of the world. Bill Gates did not improve the typewriter. Steve Jobs did not build a better Walkman. They looked around the corner and they defined what came next. The single organizing purpose of the Texas Stock Exchange is to set the conditions that make companies want to be public, rather than being motivated by fee-driven interest or ideology. The TXI is designed to align with and advocate for issuers and to make public markets work for everyone. What do I mean by that? First, We don't impose rules on listed companies only to turn around and sell them compliance services. Second, our pricing and contractual relationships are entirely transparent. Third, the listing requirements are the same for every issuer. No waivers, no exceptions. Fourth, listed companies are our customers. They're not a source of data to be repackaged and sold. And fifth, we'll be a relentless advocate for issuers with policymakers. America's economic center of gravity has shifted to the boom belt, and now there's an exchange to match it. The potential impact is enormous. The boom belt alone is home to over 6,500 PE-backed companies, the most of any quadrant in the country. And we have one of the deepest IPO pipelines in the world. The next generation of great American companies is being built right here. We are unapologetically changing the calculus so that going public is a path that companies actively pursue, not one that they avoid. The two governors here have delivered growth, prosperity, predictability, and they've laid the foundation for a renaissance in our public markets. And the federal government has made revitalizing public markets a national priority as well. Chairman Atkins has made clear that restoring competition, reducing the regulatory burden on issuers, and making IPOs great again are front and center of his agenda, which is why I'm so pleased to introduce the chairman of the SEC, Mr. Paul Atkins.
Oh. Thank you very much, Jim, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and Governors Abbott and DeSantis. I'm grateful to share the stage with you all. And to Messrs. Esposito and Lee, thank you very much for the perspectives that you've shared and for the example you've set. And spoiler alert, I'm about to echo what they've said. But anyway, so first principles have very clearly found fertile ground here in Florida. And at its core, I believe that the momentum taking place across the boom belt reflects a deeply American idea that competition among firms, among markets, and yes, among states is the animating force behind a system that has produced more prosperity than any other in human history. Competition, as I noted recently back in Texas here the last couple months, does not pause for tradition, nor does it defer to legacy jurisdictions. Over time, it compels systems and states to adapt or to yield. Through competition, good ideas spread, poor ones fade, and the system itself grows stronger. We need not look any further than the boom belt for a better example. The 11 states that span the Southeast are outpacing every other American quadrant across the measures that matter most, among them gross domestic product, population growth, job creation, foreign investment, and private market activity. When capital, companies, and people all move in the same direction with that kind of consistency and at that kind of scale, it behooves us to ask why. I believe that the answer, more often than not, is that the region's steady adherence to first principles, including those that rigorously protect investors without needlessly paralyzing companies. So for our part, the SEC is returning to those same principles by renewing the conditions that make our public markets the natural destination for companies to raise capital and for investors to share in their success. For context, decades of accretive rulemakings and regulatory adventurism have made the path to becoming a public company narrower and the experience of remaining one encumbered with rules that can introduce more friction than benefit. It's a little surprise then that shortly after I left the SEC back in the mid-1990s as chief of staff, there were more than 7,800 companies listed on U.S. exchanges. And by the time that I returned last year as chairman, that figure had fallen by roughly 40%. This trajectory tells a cautionary tale that we're working to rectify through the 3 pillars of my plan to make IPOs great again, as Jim so nicely talked about as well. So first, we're modernizing, rationalizing, and streamlining disclosure reports so that they are meaningful, understandable, and not a repellent to investors. Too many SEC requirements that began as a framework to inform have become instruments to obscure, drifting along the way from what a reasonable investor would consider important to what a regulator might find interesting. That's completely opposite of what should be the case, since we are commanded by law to put the investor first. Our disclosure regime is most effective when the SEC provides the minimum effective dose of regulation necessary to elicit the information that is material to investors. And we allow market forces, not the regulator, to drive the disclosure of any additional aspects that may be beneficial. Materiality, in short, must reclaim its place as the SEC's North Star. Second, as part of the 3 pillars of making IPOs great again, we are focused on ensuring that states and not the SEC regulate matters of corporate governance. Over time, the agency has used its disclosure authority to attempt to indirectly establish governance standards that state corporate law should and can address. We must stay in our lane as a disclosure agency and not be a merit regulator. Third pillar, and finally, we are allowing public companies to have litigation alternatives while maintaining an avenue for shareholders to continue to bring forth meritorious claims. At the SEC, we've been hard at work on executing this plan so that we can shield the innovator from the frivolous and protect the investor from the fraudulent. Taken together, these reforms represent something much larger than a regulatory agenda. Indeed, they herald the SEC's return to first principles that have made this region's ascent so remarkable. In many ways, the Boom Belt embodies the best of what we are working toward in Washington. And guided by your example, we are reminded that the most consequential reforms are not those that add to the compliance burden, but those that have the courage to lift it. So once again, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be part of today's program. I look forward to engaging with y'all in the work that we have discussed today. And above all, I thank you for your faith in what this country can achieve when it remembers the principles that in this 250th anniversary of the United States made it great. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you to Chair Atkins, and thank you to Governor DeSantis for hosting this. You know, Florida and Texas represent 2 of the anchors of the 11 states that comprise the Boom Belt. But it's not just us 2 states. It's all 11 that contribute mightily to the most robust economy of any region in the United States of America. To Jim Esposito, thank you for you and your firm's leadership. To Jim Lee, thank you for your creation and leadership of the next great stock exchange that's going to power the United States of America going forward. To Chair Atkins, it's great to reunite with him. He and I were law school classmates. He was the smart one, and great to. I've never seen anybody come into a position appointed by the president with such a steam of power and such a intense focus to ensure dramatic and swift and robust change, and was desperately needed in the securities market, and we're so grateful for everything that you're doing. Also, Jim should be grateful for what you did. You gave him a new slogan. The new slogan, Jim, is now MEGA, and that is Make IPOs Great Again. You can create a new slogan out of that. But listen, let me make one point that I'll tie some other points to, and that is if you go back in time, Wayne Gretzky was the greatest scorer in the history of the National Hockey League. And he credited his success in scoring so much by a lesson taught to him by his father, and that is to skate not to where the puck is, but to skate to where the puck is going. The same principle applies to business leaders. Visionary business leaders seek to where not the puck is right now, but to where it is going for the next year, for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years. And what visionary business leaders have found, and that is that puck is going to and already exists in the 11 states of the Boom Belt. While other regions where the puck has been in the past, they're now burdened by high taxes, by restrictive regulations, by policies that are actually hostile to businesses. The Boom Belt represents where the puck is going. And the smart money realized that more than a decade ago. Right now, the people who lead companies, the CEOs, annually, they rank states as the best states for doing business. Of the 5 best ranked states for doing business by CEOs, the top 5 are all in the Boom Belt. One example of that, why that's happening. These CEOs are doing more than making rankings. They're putting their money where the rankings are. These CEOs have invested more capital investment in Boom Belt states than any other region in the United States. Business relocations made by these CEOs rank number 1 in the Boom Belt more than any other quadrant in the United States. Also, the quadrant of the Boom Belt ranks number 1 in the United States for attracting the most talented workforce. If you look at the 2 most generations of the workforce that employers are looking for, is Gen Z and millennials. And those 2 categories of workers are relocating to the Boom Belt states more than any other region across the country. Pertinent to what we're talking about today, which is the financial sector. The Boom Belt states also lead in the employment of employees in the financial sector. Just Texas alone, for example, Texas ranks number 1 for more financial service employees than any other state, far more than New York. J.P. Morgan has more financial service employees in Texas than in New York. And when you couple Texas with the boom going on with financial employees in Florida, when you look at the legacy financial employment in North Carolina, which is part of the Boom Belt, same thing is going on in Georgia and Tennessee and elsewhere across the Boom Belt. You can see that the gravity and the centerpiece of that gravity for financial services now exist already in the Boom Belt. So it's where the puck is, but more importantly, where the puck is going in the financial markets. Another thing very important to visionary business leaders, they know that their future is going to be hinged extensively to access to power. The Boom Belt ranks number 1 for power generation. We generate more electricity and have the lowest retail electricity prices of any other region in the United States. Well, the success of the Boom Belt states is actually very easily explained. It's the result of purposeful policy choices, the result of low taxes, the result of predictable laws and regulations. And the thing about Boom Belt states, and this cannot be overstated, is that we are never satisfied with the status quo. We're constantly searching for ways in which we can improve what the success we've already achieved. Texas is an example of this. Long known as a state with low taxes and reasonable regulations, we listen to businesses to be able to craft new laws that would actually make us even more attractive to businesses in the future. As one example, to ensure long base stability and durability, we wanted to make sure that the laws that we passed would not just be in existence for the current leadership. We wanted to make sure that leaders in the future who would be elected to all these offices would have to abide by the laws that we passed. Hence, in Texas, even though we have never had a state income tax, we wanted to make sure that future generations would not be able to impose an income tax, so we made an income tax unconstitutional in the state of Texas. We made a wealth tax unconstitutional. We made a death tax unconstitutional. And as Jim Lee pointed out, we made a transactions tax unconstitutional, while at the very same time, New York already has a transactions tax. We also wanted to provide businesses the ability to access the legal decision-making process in a way that does not encumber the legacy court system with potentially long trials that could last months, maybe even a year, and not have to go to a judge that may not know anything about how a business is run. And so we created our own business courts to make sure that all these very important, very expensive, very complicated business decisions would have judges who understand not just how businesses operate, but how the business legal system operates. And we wanted to make sure that that we would not be ruled by the whim of the day. And so we codified things like the business judgment rule into the legal system in the state of Texas that will ensure that sense of predictability for businesses in the future. Policy decisions like these create a durable, predictable environment for businesses to succeed. And that's exactly why what Jim Lee said earlier came true. And that is, ExxonMobil had its incorporated headquarters in New Jersey for more than 100 years. When ExxonMobil saw the reforms Texas had passed, they moved their state of incorporation to the state of Texas. It's why we see diverse leaders of Fortune 500 companies like McKesson and Caterpillar move their headquarters respectively from California and Illinois to the state of Texas, but more than that, they're now neighbors in Irving, Texas, which is a town that we call the headquarters of headquarters. It's also the reason why Elon Musk has come to Texas. Quick story about that. Elon basically had no operations at all in Texas before 2020. He sold a few Tesla vehicles there, but as far as I know, nothing more than that. In April of 2020, Elon came to visit with me to talk about the possibility of building a gigafactory in the state of Texas. He said it was going to be more than a mile long, larger than the Pentagon, and importantly, it had to be built from beginning to end with vehicles rolling off of the complexities of a gigafactory in less than 18 months. And I'm thinking, have you ever built a house? It takes more than 18 months to build a house. Elon, however, has a need for speed. We worked with him on calibrating the permitting process and things like that to accelerate the timetable so that he was actually able to achieve building that gigafactory and having vehicles roll off of that gigafactory in less than 18 months. At a time before Elon bought Twitter and owned Twitter, he posted on Twitter that in Texas, he was able to build a gigafactory in less than 18 months, whereas in California, where he had been, he would not even have the permitting process completed. Elon has a need for speed, and Texas now has a motto that the state moves at the speed of business, ensuring that every business in our state is going to be able to benefit from the same strategies that we deployed for Elon and for the Gigafactory. Well, Elon liked it so much, and Elon, by the way, is a person I think that we can all agree upon is the greatest innovative mind of our time, the greatest wealth generator in the history of the world. Now this visionary has understood that for him, the best state for all of his businesses is Texas. So he moved the headquarters for Tesla and the incorporation for Tesla to Texas, the same for SpaceX, the same for his other businesses. In fact, Elon has SpaceX there, has the company X, which used to be known as Twitter. Elon has a son named X, and Elon likes to tell the story that all of his exes are in Texas. Importantly, the same thing is happening in boom belt states across this region. More businesses are moving their headquarters to boom belt states than any other region. The center of gravity of American capitalism is now headquartered in the boom belt. capital markets I consider to be the apex of capitalism. The Texas Stock Exchange is the natural extension of that capitalism. It ensures that capital markets will reflect the quadrant that is driving American growth. And I got this message. If your company is not already in the boom belt, come to where the puck is going. Enjoy the success that so many have experienced. Incorporate in the boom belt. And if you're already public, or if you're thinking about going public, bring your primary listing to the Texas Stock Exchange. The foundation for that has already been built. The policies for that are already in place. The only question is whether or not you and your business are going to be a part of that success. Visionaries like Elon, they recognize this, and they are now in the boom belt. Businesses can come here even if you're not of the Elon Musk category. You may just be looking for better margins for your business. Come to the boom belt. The boom belt is where the puck is going. Join us in the vastly growing boom belt states of the United States of America.
Well, I think you'd agree with me that it's just an extraordinary 5 speakers and comments, and so very, very interesting. We sincerely thank each of you very, very much for taking your time out to be with us today. Please join us, if you will, in the lobby for a great reception. We'll have a good time together. We thank you. Good afternoon, and welcome to the Boom Belt.